Two. All right, we are live and welcome into the fifth chapter. I'm Dennis Fithian, joined by Brian Jelinek. Brian Chapman with a week off. I think he's out in California. Jelinek, how you doing?
I can't complain. I watched 30 seconds of the home run derby last night, and that was my night. I'm just happy to be here right now.
Well, I'm happy to be here too. We're happy to have everybody along watching wherever you're at. There on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitch, if you're listening after the fact on the podcast, all those are good options. The best option I think is to watch it live because you can, if you're sitting there on Facebook, type away and get your thoughts in. We put it up on the screen and then we react to it. You can do the same thing on YouTube and Twitch, and that's a really cool way to go. I do find I'm somebody that likes podcasts myself, and when I go for my daily exercise, actually walking around in the park, throwing up a little fifth chapter and listening to it, whether you got an hour or whatever it is, it's a really nice option there. Straight up sports talk and entertainment, it's the way to go. So we thank everybody.
If you have like a 45-minute car ride to an hour, just start listening. If you have like a long car ride or like an hour car ride, just do that. Hop on.
Yeah, it's perfect. You may have noticed that we didn't have the intro music. Chapman has the buzzers and whistles with him out in California. He's also the one that puts that book up there and tells you what we're talking about. I could just tell you what we're talking about right here. We're going to start with that Tigers draft over the weekend that had people on edge. We got a lot of baseball, NBA Finals, and the Open or British Open, whichever you like. We'll have some picks for you coming up as well in the major wagers. So let's get this thing underway here. And, if Jelinek, if you're just seeing him on there for the first time, he's a lot of times behind the scenes, and then we pop him up during the show. He's going to be here the whole time. There you go. You see him now, and he's got the chapter 1 up there talking about the Tigers draft and how did Al Avila do, the Tigers GM. And, they had the draft there. They own the number 3 pick. And did you watch more than 30 seconds of the draft?
I saw the Tigers I saw the top 5 picks, and that was really about it. I was really bummed to see Jack Leiter go at 2. I remember hearing just through MLB Network and stuff like that, there was a possibility he could drop to us. Got really excited, and we landed with Jackson Jobe. All right, we got Jackson Jobe, and I don't know. Good, bad? I don't know. He has really high upside. There's a lot of risk to it. Hopefully it works out. That's the best way I can put it right now.
Well, the one thing, as a Detroit sports fan, we have had our teams picking, not the Red Wings. We'd like to see them get the number 1 pick or, pick in the, very high in the draft. We know the Pistons are picking number 1. We have seen the Tigers pick over the last couple of years 1-1, and they got Torkelson last year, Casey Mize a couple of years before that. There wasn't a consensus, and so knowing that the Tigers were going to pick 3, if you're a Tigers fan, maybe over the last year, but certainly over the last couple months, if not weeks, or weeks and months, you've seen what is being said about the draft across the board, and there didn't seem to be a real consensus at number 1, and this was being deemed as a great shortstop draft. There were 3 prize shortstops to get, and the Tigers, we know they're in need of a shortstop. So when I tuned in and saw that, the Pirates didn't go shortstop, and then, the number 2 pick didn't go shortstop either, it seemed like if there wasn't a consensus, but it seemed like if you had a percentage, if you had 100 people that know about baseball draft, not just, people that are just throwing things around, people that scout and talk to people and organize such things. I mean, they all do that. And then Marco Mayer, the high school shortstop, he seemed to be the odds-on favorite to be the best player in this draft. And so with the Tigers having a need for shortstop in their organization and having that number 3 overall pick and being up that high in the draft, like this thing felt like it just landed right in Al Avila and the Tigers' lap. And so when they were on the clock at 3, there was a little bit of a celebration going on in the Fithian household. Like, hey, this is great. The Tigers are sitting there at 3. They could have been at 1-1. I think this is what they would take if they had the first overall pick. They're going to take Mayer. This is a no-brainer. Run the card up there, pull the trigger, let's go. It's kind of a party. There's been some enthusiasm, I think, in Tigers Town, Tiger Twitter, or whatever you want to say. And then when they went to Jackson Jobe, a high school hurler, it was like, whoa. Now, in the end, they came back with their second pick and Ty Madden. And, you're talking about drafting where the slots are, the money, and you start looking into all this and you're like, oh, well, hey, maybe the Tigers made a good move here so they could come back and then get Madden. And then some of the other pitchers, actually, if you look overall at the depth of their draft, they're being complimented widely by the analysts and the experts. But, everybody watching and Jelinek here, I think there's three things that make me feel like they missed it. One is that, and we know it's not a sure thing up at in baseball draft, but being up that high, feeling like you could get the very best player in a draft year, and Mayer was the guy. There was that feeling that this thing fell, like I said, right into the Tigers' lap. That was one. The other one is high school pitchers. Just overall in the history of baseball, they have a huge propensity to bust. If you look at the last few years, I mean, it's not changed. Even you'd say, well, that's in the past. Look at the analytics. Look what they can do now with all the different things that they have to work with the pitchers and biometric, all these different things. They've still been busting at a high rate. So that was another thing, like red flag, like, wow, what a gamble. You're taking a pitcher at 3. Woo! That was another thing. And then, but the number one overall is that it's Al Avila, and it's hard to have a faith, trust, and a belief in Al Avila with his tenure. And I would also put Chris Ilitch in there, because the thought here is like, well, the Tigers just going to go out and get Carlos Correa and spend $250 million in the offseason and bring him in, and then everybody else, have to shut their pie holes or whatever else. It's like I don't have great faith in the offseason that Chris Ilitch is going to write that big check, and that those are the three things that make me feel like the Tigers missed with that number 3 pick.
Well, Dennis, I totally agree. I was just like casually just chilling back on my couch, legs kicked up and all that during the draft. And then when Leiter went off at second, I stood up. I'm like, oh my God, this is happening just like with the Pistons getting the lottery pick. I was like, oh my God, it's falling. Meyer's falling into our lap right now. I'm so excited. And it didn't happen. So right off the bat, I'm like, okay, like Jackson Jobe. The first thing I saw is that he's been compared to Dylan Bundy, which I don't love, because Dylan Bundy hasn't been bad, hasn't been good. But same with the Oklahoma pitcher coming out, really good stuff and all that, and which who knows if it's going to work out. Bundy's been good, not great. I don't love that comparison. But, yeah, I mean, just taking high school pitchers like that freaks me out. I know, I understand he has like the 3,000 RPMs and has really high scores with his fastball, his slider, his changeup, and all that. That's great, but do we know what's going to happen? No. Just like what it is. It's a high risk, really high reward type thing. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah. I like hearing about his slider and how this thing is like, this could be the greatest wipeout pitch of all time. So that it's not like I sit back and completely ignore all those things. Yeah, that's great. And like Keith is saying here, who is put a message in through YouTube. He said, I wanted Mayer, even though we have no idea. They drafted way too many starting pitchers over the last 10 years. It's ridiculous. There is that part, like, if you're a really good GM, like when Dombrowski, he always drafted a bunch of pitchers too, and then he just traded them, for big time free agents, and then paid them. So, it's about getting great players. I mean, I know that, like, they could have taken, like, you normally you're looking at positions. There was a time when you'd say, no, don't take a first baseman, don't take a catcher. Although, catcher went early this year, and you take, you want 5-tool guys, and you don't want to take relievers. But hey, if you're taking a guy who ends up being a Hall of Famer, it's great. So taking the talent and where it's at. So you're right about they've taken a lot of pitchers and all of that. And the thing is that we don't have any idea, but we do have a little bit of idea of what people were saying and about the Tigers' needs and just how it fits into the timeline and how this is going to be when you're in the 5th year of a 5-year rebuild. And next year, you're really looking to, if you're not going to be competing in the Central, you better be 500 or better. You better really be able to show something. And when you're taking a high school pitcher that, you're going to be lucky, if he's 3 years away, and it's, that's another part where it was like, you don't like that. But, here we are. And, that's where it's at when it comes down. They did not get Marcolo Mayer. It's something that we will watch over the years. The one, how quickly things go is that, we'll forget about Mayer next year. It's really going to be just how the Tigers do. And, you look at the Astros, who, the Tigers have their manager, and you look at all the first round picks. They had 2 pitchers that one of them they couldn't even sign. They did pick Carlos Correa the 1 year, which was a great pick, but they made some good trades. They were able to get JD Martinez, and or they gave away JD Martinez, but then they came back and they were able to get guys that undrafted guys all over the place, and that's how they made their team, and cheat a little bit too. I think that helped them out.
That's the problem, though. I mean, in any other, with any of our other GMs right now, I feel totally confident with that. Like, there's if the roles reversed and it was Brad Holmes making that, I'd be like, okay, we'll see how it works out. Like, stuff like that. We have confidence they can do whatever the hell they better. But who knows what's going to happen with Avila? I don't understand how Jackson Jobe fits into the Tigers timeline right now. Because you said it's minimum of 3 years till he's here. Who knows what's going to be happening then? I mean, we needed middle infield help specifically. We just need more hitters in the system. I understand that we have Torque and Riley Green and stuff like that, but we need more hitting. And I just don't I like the pick. It's an interesting pick. I just don't see how it fits in the Tigers timeline. Like you said, after in the 5th year of a 5-year rebuild, we're not expecting this guy until 2024.
Yeah, I mean, there's sometimes the great ones, and when you're picking up that high, maybe it can be a little bit different. And if you wanted to make a case that the Tigers were drafted about the slot so they could come back and get better players afterwards, and they did do that, you want to sit here and make that argument? I mean, it's a fair argument. The argument that when you're up that high and you might be able to get the number 1 player overall, I mean, that's the thing. And it's really just a gut feel on how you are looking at the thing. And again, you go through to sit around and be like, well, we really trust Al Avila. That's a very difficult thing to do. Chris Ilitch is just going to step up and get a shortstop. Don't worry about that. So we never can have enough pitching. All of these things that you do. Oh, high school pitcher. Those guys always work out. There's a lot of things to be really nervous about. This felt like the Tigers, maybe they were picking 11, and this high school pitcher, the greatest phenom ever, everybody was like, ooh, we just don't want to take the gamble. Ooh, we don't want to take a gamble. So, he falls down to 11, and then the Tigers take him there. It's like, hey, it's worth the gamble. But when you're up that high, it felt like they swung and missed there. So I think most of Detroit, from what I have witnessed, agree with both you and I, and Keith, who says he's still disappointed. He wanted Leiter like you, but was gone. Rocker could be the best pitcher in this class, and he dropped because whatever he was talking about there wasn't as dominant as the year before, period. But so what? I think he would have been the number 1 pick, but I've been the number 1 pick last year, and the Mets got him at 10. So there you go. There's some of the feedback from Keith. Meanwhile, Andy, signability, talking about with Mayer was an issue. Yeah, I know when the Tigers took Rick Porcello, I think they got him in the 20s. I remember being in the clubhouse and Al Kaline. I wasn't talking with Al Kaline, but I was standing. Al Kaline had a bounce at his step. He's like, man, we got the best player in the draft because nobody wanted to sign him. He fell all the way there, and the Tigers, stepped up and paid the money to get Rick Porcello. So you knew that part about signability, but it's also if he ends up being the next Carlos Correa, and you're paying for that, that's the thing. Yeah, I wish they would have done it.
With going back to the Tigers timeline, how just drafting a middle infielder, specifically a shortstop, would have been so much better. Just because, do we know if Chris Ilitch is going to be a big spender in free agency? I understand that this is the year that the Tigers have said that they're going to spend money, but Chris Ilitch has shown that he's going to be kind of cheap, and I just don't believe that we're going to be signing a Carlos Correa or a Trevor Story or something like that to a lot of money, and I don't have faith in that going into this offseason.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know about Chris Ilitch. We're going to find out.
Yeah.
But we don't know that he's going to step up and be ready to throw 250 down for a shortstop. All right, that gets us in a time to turn the page to
the
chapter
home run
2.
derby. Yeah. So, Dennis, how'd you like the home run derby? Did you enjoy it?
You know what? First, a brief history with me and all-star games and skills competitions and all that. It's been about 5 years that, slowly, watching these all-star games and all-pros and Pro Bowls and things like this erode where, I would watch them, break them down like I do other games when I was on the radio. And then people's interest was like, there's no interest. And, I used to take vacation over the all-star break routinely, and if I was going to watch one thing, I was going to watch the all-star game. I'd still check that out a little bit. But then 3 years ago, I went to Colorado and I made the big plans like, hey, let's go to I want to go watch the all-star game. And I went in this bar restaurant. The bar, I had to ask him to turn it on. Nobody was watching it. I was with my family. It was up on a little bitty screen up there. And it was kind of like, I could have said, hey, I want to stay here. Let's watch the all-star game. But, we're in Colorado traveling and thinking, hey, is this really something I want to do? The next year, I was also on vacation. It was like, hey, do I really want to go out and watch the all-star game? Is this really? And I didn't. Then I didn't have one last year. So it's been a few years since I've watched the all-star game. And it was the one I liked the most. I think all of them have jumped the shark. I can remember being on a Sunday night, I was with some friends at a bar, and we were actually sitting at the bar. It was pretty for a Sunday night at a bar, sitting around. There were more people than you might expect. But I asked him, and he's like, hey, can you put on the all-star game? The guy's like, whatever. He puts on the all-star game, and I'm watching it. And a couple of people there with me like, oh, you're watching that for work? And I'm like, yeah, that's always a good excuse. Watching it for work, but we're watching it. It's like, man, this all-star game sucks. And it's like, it did suck. So I say all that. I'm a big Ohtani fan, so I wanted to see him hit. And I also like Juan Soto. And so I DVR'd it. And so when I tuned in, I fast forwarded to Soto, who started out hitting, and then Ohtani, and I watched that 10 minutes of those two guys dueling back and forth. And that was, without watching the whole thing, I think I caught the right part, that you would want to watch. Now, I like watching guys hit home runs, but this was more like a pinball machine. It was like they'd swing, and these guys wouldn't even watch it go out. Like they would swing, and then here comes the next one because they're on the timer. I didn't like that part of the split screen, and it was hard to follow and everything else, but I liked the 10, I think it was probably 10, 15 minutes that I watched. Soto did his thing. He's spectacular to watch. And then, of course, all eyes are going to be on Shohei Ohtani, who looked like he was going to Brandon Inge it. Like when he got up there, it's like a ground ball, foul ball. It's like, oh, this is let's say it was an embarrassment. But he caught fire to be able to get to the, hit off or whatever it was. Yeah. They put some more time on there. Then they had the 3 pitches and Soto won it. I enjoyed it. The 10, 15 minutes that I watched of those two dueling back and forth, I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I didn't even get to that. I watched maybe 30 seconds of it. I watched some highlights on SportsCenter after that, but I'm with you. The All-Star game for me, the MLB one was always the best when it determined home field advantage for the playoff or for the World Series. I understand how players would hate that and stuff, but for me, it made the game great and made the game watchable. And now it's just like every other thing. It's not. All-Star games aren't fun to watch, period. And with the MLB switching it from the home field advantage thing just to a regular All-Star game, I really don't enjoy it. And I will say the home run derby is better now at the time limit and makes it more competitive, makes it more fun like that, the bracket system and all that. Because the old home run derbies were brutal.
Well, they took forever. Forever. But then there was a couple years ago that they had one, and I can remember I wasn't watching it myself, but I was, hitting Twitter when I remember where I was at. But I saw these people like, wow, this is awesome. Hey, this is really cool. And it was like everybody loved it. Like people that were on Twitter, and you don't usually get that. Like this sucks and everything else, but people generally liked it. They weren't. This was not the format that they had. I don't know how many years that they've gone with this particular one with the split screen and the time and all of that. But yeah, like, so for the 15 minutes, I mean, if you sat in there and we're going through the whole 15 hours, like, I started DVR, like, I think it was started 7:38. Ohtani and Soto, the part that I'm talking about, was until like 9:15. So you would have had to sit there for an hour and 15 minutes watching some of that, before you got to the real highlight of it. So yeah.
Pete Alonso was pretty electric, though. I saw all of his highlights on Twitter and followed through that, like him calling timeout. I think that was against Soto, I believe. And he just hyped up the crowd and everything like that. It was awesome to see that. And like Pete Alonso is an electric player because he just hits absolute dongs. But still, I mean, sick. He back-to-back champ, like good for him, all that. But I think the real thing was watching Trey Mancini. As soon as I saw him entered in the tournament, I was like, okay, I have to watch Mancini. And him getting to the final round, only losing by a couple of home runs, was awesome to see, like coming back from beating cancer and everything like that. Like, it's good to see. Like, if you weren't rooting for Trey Mancini, there's something totally wrong with you.
Yeah, or you're a Mets fan.
Yeah, but still, come on. Like, dude came back from cancer. Like,
even a Mets fan would have understood. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Everybody rooting for Mancini for sure. All right, you ready to turn the page?
One more question. Why were they all wearing 44? I didn't pick up on that. Did you see that at all, or no? Everyone was wearing 44 in the home run derby. Do you have any idea? No? Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm ready to turn the page, Dennis. Don't really care that much.
That gets us to the guy who is the starter tonight and leading off for the American League, Shohei Ohtani. And that's a big deal. Comparisons to Babe Ruth and everything else. But the big news was yesterday when Stephen A. Smith from ESPN declared that he didn't think Ohtani, because of a language barrier, he didn't think that it helped baseball. And he said he doesn't think it helps that the number one face is a dude that needs an interpreter. Now, he has since apologized.
Well, he doubled down first. You saw that,
He did double
right?
down. You're right.
He doubled down. He
doubled down in a video and said, look, you know me. And then he's like, hey, make sure you're watching me tomorrow and everything else. And then he did come back and issue an apology. Did he have any point at all? Is he completely lost? Where are you at with Shohei Ohtani?
I think he's
Stephen
lost.
A. Smith.
Who cares if he can't? Who cares if Ohtani can't speak English? Like, I have no problem. I think it'd be hilarious seeing him market with an interpreter. I think that'd be awesome for the sport. Baseball needs anything they can get right now. I mean, Mike Trout, like, we may not know. Mike Trout may not speak English. He doesn't do anything for the MLB. Like, Mike Trout, when he's playing, is the best player in the league, and he doesn't do squat for the whole league for branding or advertising or anything like that. Who could care less if Ohtani can't speak English? I mean, does it really matter? Dude's obviously one of the best players in the game, and it's a horrible take from Stephen A. Smith. I hope that Stephen A. Smith doesn't believe something like that, because I think it's all just for a ratings boost and stuff like that. Dude's making $12 million a year just to be a loudmouth on ESPN. I think it was totally absurd for him to say something like that.
Yeah, I think most people share your opinion there. Paul weighing in, which makes a complete and 100% about why everybody would be wearing the number 44. Hank Aaron passing away this past year, and that is Hammer and Hank's number. So a show of respect for the great Hank Aaron. Good job there, Paul, jumping in on that. I feel a little embarrassed that I wasn't able to come up with that one off even the top of my head. I was going to say Reggie Jackson, but Reggie Jackson's still alive. I didn't think about Hank Aaron passing away. But the thing with Stephen A. Smith, the first thing I thought of was there any point to what he was saying? I've been in Detroit long enough to go back when Sergei Fedorov was dominant for the Red Wings and won the Hart, and there was some language barrier with Sergei Fedorov. At times, Sergei Fedorov didn't want to say anything, and I thought he hid behind the language barrier. Other times, and then I've seen it also with Miguel Cabrera, where at times it has been a struggle to understand him, and I've questioned what kind of leader he is and those kind of things, and I've wondered, well, is there a point here when you're talking about being the face of baseball? And you know what? And I don't think there is any point. Like, you really can't go to anywhere. Like, you could still be a leader. Like, Miguel Cabrera is not a very good leader, and he's always been somebody that was just going to speak with his bat. But you know what? He could throw 4 or 5 words out there like, hey, guys, let's get this going. Or he could stand in front of the media and say, hey, fans, we've got this. And people would say, okay. Yeah. And if Miguel Cabrera and the Tigers would have won the World Series against the Giants and Cabrera would have hit 5 home runs, people wouldn't have cared if he ever said anything. If he acted the kind of childish way, the nice childish way, sometimes not so nice childish way that he's always acted, people would be like, who cares? It's Miguel Cabrera. And if they would have won multiple World Series and he won the Triple Crown, people would be like putting him up there with, Steve Yzerman and Isaiah Thomas as one of the greats and talking about getting him a statue and all these different things. And, and it would have just come down to production out there when it, or ultimately winning it when it came down to Miguel Cabrera. And, I think of some of the other sports, like when Aaron Rodgers came out and he just said, relax. I mean, that was like, he was supposed to be a leader and being marketable. What do you really even have to say? What Michael Jordan, back in the day, he had a smile and he was great. And it was really, it was Mars Blackman that was talking about his shoes. He didn't even say anything. You don't even have to say anything. You can say like one word. So there's no point. Xenophobia, where people from other countries, and I think that's what Stephen A. Smith really came back, because if you're going to be somebody that's like, hey, why are you saying that? Like, you get the race relations and everything else. And then if you're using the kind of same things that some people use and you're using against Ohtani, that's a fine line. I do think people want to cancel Stephen A. and what if a white guy? We could talk about all those different things. I just went through all the different scenarios where I don't think there was any point in that. Like, you could be somebody who couldn't talk at all. You could be a mute, and not be able to speak. And
if you produce, it doesn't matter. If you're producing on the field, it does not matter whatsoever. And I think maybe Stephen A. finally realized that, or he's just doing it for ratings. I don't know.
And if the Angels went out there and somehow went to the World Series and Ohtani hit home runs and was going deep into games and winning World Series games, and then they followed up, did it like for the next 2 years. Like, here's Ohtani pitching like he's better than Babe Ruth, and he's hitting home runs in the World Series, and he's pitching a shutout in the World Series. Ohtani wouldn't have to say anything. People would be like, this guy's the greatest thing ever for baseball. So
exactly,
none of that mattered. It was interesting to think about every different angle. If there wasn't any point, if there was something about, he was just talking about that it would help. And you could say, well, he tabled it there. It wasn't about his marketability, but all of those things were wrapped up in there, really, if you're going to be honest. And I think in the end, when you're talking about, we want diversity, we want inclusion, we want all these different things, don't say, well, it doesn't help that this dude's from Japan and he can't speak English.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. The best way I can think about it is that when you look at like basketball or football or something like that, every year when somebody wins, they're the guy. LeBron wins, he's the guy. Back in the day, Magic won, he was the guy. Tom Brady's the guy. Like, baseball there's so many players over such a large season that you need multiple people. And I'm not sure if Stephen A. just delivered it terribly or had zero idea what he was talking about. But in a way, if this is the argument he was trying to make, I get it, because that would suck to have one of the best players in the league not be able to market himself. But at the end of the day, why does it matter if he's like producing? If he sucked, I mean, where am I trying to go with this? I think just at the end of the day, just Stephen A. wanted debate or just wanted more airtime for himself. So I think that's all it is just noise to put out there.
Yeah, Beth puts up the interesting point about Cabrera again, saying everyone used to say, why isn't Cabrera the face of the league? And everyone thought it was the language barrier. You go back and I think about, Barry Bonds. It wasn't a very good face of the league. No. Like McGuire, Sosa, like those guys were the face of the league. But then we know what happened with steroids. There really haven't been is Mike Trout,
Derek Jeter,
or Bryce Harper, Derek Jeter. Like, are these guys the faces of the league? Like, there's a lot of people that wouldn't know Bryce Harper and Mike Trout if they were walking down the street. Yeah, I don't think Cabrera, you also do have to embrace that and want to be somebody that gets out there to be the face of Major League Baseball. It's tough because basketball has it so easy. These guys are out there and they don't have helmets on.
Yeah.
You can see their face. There's only 5 players. You are the superstar. Everybody talks about you. And for baseball wise, Ohtani, he's getting as much run and publicity right now doing like for somebody that, I've never seen and Trout's been the best player for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody says, yeah, Trout's great, but they don't sit around talking about him just to say that he's just great. But, I don't know if he's the face of the league. Once he do some Subway commercials, Aaron Judge, and do like some Subway commercials, so does that make you the face of the league? Good points there.
It just shows that baseball just sucks at marketing its players, though. Because, same with the NHL. I mean, like I said, with football and basketball, it's so easy. But, when you look at the NHL, who's the face of the NHL? McDavid? That's the only person I can think of.
Right. And, before that, guys like Sidney Crosby and stuff, all right, are they doing, what makes them the face of the league? They're the best. They were the best players. Football is easy because it's so much more popular than everything else. Mm-hmm. And then quarterbacks naturally, they're just out there and, they're and then basketball, it works because you see their personality. It's like you live with them out there on the floor, Chris Paul, you see him in all these commercials and everything. And he's a superstar before they made the finals. I mean, he's just a super smart star with a nice smile. And it just works that way. Baseball, it's hard for them. All right. Here's Jonathan saying players should be obligated to speak for the press. It's part of the job. I agree, Jonathan. I think that they are obligated to do that. How much they have to give, how much they have to go through it. I get that part. I've also been through it enough where if somebody is not interested, they're not interested in for whatever reason. They could be shy. It could actually be a phobia for them. They could have whatever it is. Osaka, said, from depression or whatever else. But I've seen enough where 75% of the athletes, and I don't care what they have to say.
I totally agree.
They're boring.
They're robots.
They're rolling the cliches out there. Yeah. They're afraid that they might say something. And so the quarter of the athletes actually who are thoughtful, that understand, hey, people just like what we're doing right here. People are watching because we're sports fans. We like talking about the games. We like, thinking about them. We like, looking at the different aspects. And the athletes that get that part and want to do it, I celebrate those. And for the others, hey, you get out there, you have some obligations that you do have to fulfill. And, if you don't want to do it, just get out there and roll through like Marshawn Lynch, say a few things and get out of there. I don't care. And some of these guys, they put them in positions of being on broadcasters and stuff. Nobody wants to hear. And if you're going to embrace it and you have something to say, we're good with it. If not, let's just move on that way.
I can't even think of a player right now who does that, embraces the media and stuff and talks like that. I mean,
well, I think a lot of the QBs understand that that's their job, that they're the face of the team, that they get out there and speak for the team. And they do a pretty good job at that. I remember back in the day when I would go down to Lions training camp, and the one time they said, they would bring different players on, and some of the guys didn't want to be there, and they'd be like, yeah, we're just going out every day and trying to get, just talking cliches. One time they brought Nate Burleson up to me, and he sat down, and Nate Burleson leaned over and said, how long's the segment? And I said, it'd be about 10 minutes. He's like, how many segments you want me? You want me to sit in on 3 of them? You want me to sit in on 3 segments? Nate Burleson's telling me this right before we go. And I'm like, yeah. Guy sits down. And I'm like, hey, here we are with Nate Burleson. Next thing you know, Nate Burleson for a half hour is talking about everything you'd want. I didn't have to say anything. Hey, Nate, how are things going? Next thing you know, he was talking, Nate Burleson, that dude could be the lead announcer on Monday Night Football here.
I understand that completely, but that's such a small minority of players. Sitting through a Matthew Stafford press conference, I want to blow my brains out. It's just we were bad today. I threw 2 interceptions. I'm sorry about the pick 6. We have to be better. I can't stand that stuff. And I think that's 95% of athletes. Sure, they can be required to talk to the media. They probably should at least maybe do the Bob Quinn method and talk at the beginning, the end of the year. But Miguel Cabrera doesn't say anything
well, there's a language barrier with Miguel Cabrera. It's can be difficult to understand what he's saying, and he doesn't say a whole lot even when he's talking. So I've always just said, hey, let him talk with his bat. I get you on Stafford. He fulfills his obligation. He goes out there, but you're never left with feeling like, man, there's guys that you can listen to and you say, man, I'm pumped up, man. It's awesome what they have to say. That's awesome what they have to say. You're right. There's not a lot of them. There's not a lot of them.
No, absolutely not.
All right, let's see. There are a lot of people commenting in on here. Paul W. is not a fan of Smith, but it's funny how he rips on the Cowboys. It's talking about you were a little negative on Stephen A. Smith. You're not a fan.
It's a roller coaster with Stephen A. There's a couple weeks where I'm like all in the first take, and then there's like stuff like this that Stephen A. does, and I just hate. But I will say they had Jeff Passan on today, and Passan just owned Stephen A. Smith. Did you see Passan today or not?
I probably never watched 5 minutes of First Take. However, I like Stephen A. Smith in doses. Like when Stephen A. Smith talks about the NBA, I love watching Stephen A. Smith talk about the NBA. He is passionate. He's an entertainer. Yeah. And like to Paul's point, I do see enough where you're on Twitter, whether it's memes or GIFs or whatever, where he's putting on the cowboy hat and he comes strolling in. Those things are funny to me. It's the one part like now he hosts Sports Center, he hosts a radio show, he's doing First Take. I mean, the $12 million a year, there's a lot of people that absolutely love him, and he will get ripped. I remember what was it last year or the year before? He was talking about a tight end that wasn't even on the team anymore, and
exactly.
so it's the one thing about whether you want to be in the media, and it's not really a dirty secret. Do I think that Stephen A. Smith watches the NBA playoffs and watches all those games? I do. Or watches the highlights. But do I think that he's watching every football game, spending, hours upon hours? Like, it's hard to be an NFL expert, a Major League Baseball expert. It's hard to be an expert on everything. He's great talking about the NBA. I like watching him do that.
Well, yeah, because he knows what he's talking about the NBA. It's same with like Mike Wilbon. Like Mike Wilbon knows the NBA, and I will always listen to Mike Wilbon when it comes to the NBA. If to bring this back to Ohtani, if he was on like the Yankees or the Mets, you think this would be an even bigger story? Just because he's like,
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, all right,
for sure. Yeah, here's somebody. We'll clip this one. Take a picture of the screen. Let's get a screenshot.
We'll have to send
Jonathan saying, "Great point by Brian. MLB sucks at marketing their players." Now he's right. You're right, and he's right. There you go. Yeah. Basketball is a very player-driven sport. It revolves around the player, no question. There, Beth, you are right about that. All right, are we ready to turn the page to the fourth chapter?
Let's do it. Talk a little NBA Finals, Game 4. I don't know if I should bet on basketball anymore because I felt really good about Chapman saying that the Suns were going to sweep the Bambies and all that. I took the money line on the Suns. That didn't work. I doubled down at halftime. That didn't work. The Bucks looked good, man. The Bambies, because I know Chapman would get upset with me calling them the Bucks, but they looked really good. They limited the Booker, Paul, and Ayton to under 20 points each. So whatever they did a couple nights ago, they have to do again. Just the Bucks look really, really good.
I'll tell you what's hard is picking games. I mean, that's why, hard. This just in. But I hear you. I look to Game 4 here, and I know just what that crowd is going to have to do for the Bucks. Mm-hmm. And the one thing, if you look it up, it was just a couple of years ago, the Cavs, when they got down 3-1, Draymond Green got suspended. They were down 3-1, and they came back and won in a Game 7, and they beat the Warriors, and LeBron won the championship for Cleveland. That is the only time in NBA Finals history that a team was down 3-1 and was able to come back and win it. When the Bucks lose and they get down 3-1, the Suns are going to win the NBA championship. So this next game that's coming in here, the Bucks have to have it. When you talk about must winning a game, obviously it's not a must win because they could rip off and be the second team in NBA history to do it, but it's very unlikely. So you have that part, but I just look, the Suns here, Ayton got into foul trouble, and Devin Booker if he really is going to be this superstar, like he's cusping, he feels like he's a superstar. Watching him in some of these games, he's acting like a superstar. One thing about superstars is they don't have back-to-back bad games, and Booker did not play well this next game. Tomorrow night, I would think that you would get better performance from Ayton, better performance from Booker. I think there've been some blowouts here. The other teams winning by double digits and all this. I think tomorrow night's game, I like the Bucks, but I like it being a really close game. And that's why when you start talking about the point spread and everything else, it feels like a coin toss. I wouldn't recommend anybody like, well, who do you like? Well, I like the Bucks to win, but I like the Suns and the 4 points. Whenever I feel like that, I feel like telling people, hey, don't bet it because you're really coming down. It's coming down to a shot. It's coming down to a call. The way that Giannis, and I'm not the biggest, I have found him over the years not to be the most entertaining player. And even in these playoffs where it's like, all right, get it up top to him, let him get in his triple threat and just watch him drive to the basket. It's like, this is not very entertaining, but they're putting him in different spots. They're putting him all over the floor. And when you dominate, he did it in the third quarter in game 2 and pretty much in game 3, it was all Greek freak. That's why they won the game. Ultimately, he was the best player on the floor. I would expect him to be the best player on the floor again tomorrow night. And that's what I'm hoping for as a basketball fan. Let us get to a pivotal game 5 where then you feel like all the chips are out there and, you're really getting into a long series because it'll be over if the Suns win it tomorrow night.
Yeah, I found the series pretty entertaining so far. I don't know, like a lot of people are talking about how it's just not been entertaining. The playoffs haven't been great in general. I thought this is one of the first years I've watched the playoffs basically through and through, and I've really enjoyed watching both the Bambies for the most part, but the Suns have been electric to watch, and watching them lose by 20 was really shocking a couple nights ago. And DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, and Booker have to score more points if they're going to be able to win, especially in Milwaukee. So.
Well, one thing people always like to complain about the NBA, and people like to complain about sports in general, but do you have a point if you want to say that, hey, the playoffs have sucked because all of these different stars have been injured from the first round, Anthony Davis, and, you can just go through the list of all the guys that have gone down from, Kyrie Irving and what, happened with the Nets and just really all the way through. And
Kyrie can go away forever. Kyrie can just go away forever.
Well, yeah, I'm just talking in general about the playoffs or people, if you wanted to hate on him, you say, then it was going good. But then Ice Trae, he was looking awesome, and then he got hurt. Then Antetokounmpo got hurt. And it's like, wait a second. These are the playoffs where everybody's getting hurt. So there's been a point to that. I thought up to the conference finals, it was some of the best playoffs with the injuries factored in that I had ever seen, just from an entertainment standpoint.
Absolutely.
Different teams, exciting games going through, but yeah, it sucked when when you got Trae going down and then you didn't have the Greek freak. Those last couple games, you're expecting it to build up, and you know what? The one thing about sports, you got to finish strong. You can't have a good first round, good second round, and then not have a good conference finals and not have the greatest finals and talk about it being a great playoff. So it did dip down, but you know what? Hey, we get a Bucks victory coming up tomorrow night, and we end up getting a game 7, and both teams are full strength and they're punching each other in the mouth, and you end up getting a great. I think this could finish up and be an excellent playoffs.
I think so. I think Suns in 6, absolutely, because I think when they get back to Phoenix, they're going to win. But I'm just happy it's not a 4-game sweep or a 5-game series. If I get 6 games, I'm totally happy.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And for people that like, looking at the ratings and saying, well, the ratings suck, and that's because of why, whether it's woke, like they were talking about last year. I think the biggest factor, or the injuries that we just talked about, the post-pandemic people going on vacation in the summer. Like, I like that we're sitting here, where are we at, July 13th, and we still have the NBA going off. There's a part of that for a sports fan. I think it's great too. These things usually getting done, in the middle to, the end of June, not the middle to the end of July. So there's just not as many people watching TV. So, from that standpoint, they're not going to continue this, even though for me, I would love it if they pushed the season and didn't start until Christmas. I would like hockey to do it. I'd like the NBA to do it because, but they're not going to do that. It's just not going to happen. Too bad.
Speaking of ratings and all that, shame on the NBA or the MLB for having the draft on the night of an NBA Finals game. Like, what in the world are they thinking doing stuff like that?
Well, the one thing that they're thinking is that they're not going to be held hostage by, the other leagues, and they got to do their own thing. So I hear you, though. When the Pistons were in the conference finals and the Red Wings were in the Stanley Cup finals, it would be like, hey man, can we get the Stanley Cup finals on one night and the Pistons the other night? So this is great for me. I can remember being at the Stanley Cup Finals in 2008 or 9, and I would, watch the Red Wings in the first period. Then, I'm going up to a suite and watching the Pistons and Celtics and the Eastern Conference Finals. It's not that it was too much. It was awesome that they were there, but you wanted them on different days. But you can't always get what you can't get that. But just it's too bad that they don't do it that way.
Having a draft on a month, Sunday or Monday night, is just brutal. You can't be doing.
I don't like it when the Pistons and Red Wings play on the same night.
Yeah.
At the same time, you got to choose.
As long as they're night games, I don't care. Oh, no.
What's that? Well, I don't like it. Then Bally Sports is like running the score. I got to stick, like, if you're DVRing, if you really are watching them, you don't want to know. I mean, that's kind of next level sports fandom stuff.
Dennis, do you know what week it is?
I do.
It's Open Championship week. One of the best weeks of the year.
Yeah, that's getting us to the 5th chapter, right?
Yes, and you cannot call it the British Open because that's not what it's called, and you'll get crapped on by other golf fans when you say that. So it's always the Open Championship. You got to remember that. But
yeah, I disagree with you on that. Like, growing up for me, it was always the British Open, but this has been something in the last, I don't know if it's 10, 15 years where they just dropped the British part and have just called it the Open. And I do know that if you're over in England, they've always just called it the Open. If you're over on the continent, that's all they do is call it the Open, and it's bled over to the United States. But, I still have no problem with anybody calling it the British Open. It's played in the British Isles, and it is the British Open. So that's okay with me. And it helps you out because, tennis, the U.S. Open, I don't mind the British Open part. For me, I don't look down on anybody that would do that. I have always, if I have ranked the 4 majors, I know in England they would always have the Open be number 1, and they would pick the Masters 2 because of tradition. Then they would pick the U.S. Open because it's the most like the Open because of the tricked up courses and the long. And then, the PGA would always be the 4th. I think PGA, they've moved it around a little bit. I think for me, it's still 4th. And I've gone back and forth between the U.S. Open and the British Open of being 2 and 3. I've always had the Masters number 1 because where it comes, kicking things off, getting back into golf. It's awesome. It's like it's ushering in spring and everything there. But, I will pick the British Open as number 2. I like, that sounds weird, getting up at 6, 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning and watching golf.
Oh, you got to get up earlier on that on Thursday and Friday and try it out. The 1:35, 4 o'clock tee times. It's all about that. I'm about it.
Yeah, I like that part. I like that part too.
But yeah, I mean, so if we're looking at it, it's at Royal St. George's Golf Club in Sandwich Bay, England. That's near Kent, I guess. I have no idea where it is, but Sandwich Bay is a sick name for a town.
Well,
and what?
Well, I was gonna say it's east. It's east of London,
70 miles.
It's just you probably take the train there. So I know you can to Wimbledon, and it would just be a little bit on past that way, and it's just north of Dover. So it's right off the English Channel and the North Sea there. So it's actually it's right on the English Channel, North Sea. So that'll be a pretty cool venue.
Some alterations were actually made to the course too. They restored a couple of bunkers on hole 4 and 7. There's a large swell now on hole 5, which is no longer a bunker, which is going to be cool. And there's 2 more bunkers on 17 on the left side of the green. So it's going to be very difficult and very fun to watch these players struggle trying to get.
What did you call the course?
What do you mean the course?
What did you call it?
Royal St. George Golf Club.
Is it the Royal and Ancient? Don't you have to say the Royal and Ancient, or is that how they say it over there?
I have no idea. But
just keep an eye on that when you're watching. I like it when the bunkers in the Open, they have, what are they called? The pot bunkers.
Yeah,
you ever tried to hit out of one of those?
Yeah, it's impossible. I can't do it. I've only played one course that has them, and I hit the ball into the bricks, and it went back like 15 feet.
I never have either. One thing that I find, like, I bury or plug my shots so much around any kind of sand trap and rough. And it's amazing to me that these guys, even when they hit it in the rough, you go over there and look, it's like, oh, it's got a pretty good line. I was like, that's so crazy, because my ball, when it's in the rough, is like all the way down, and you're like, you just can't get it out of there. I find it amazing. I think it's the grass that they have there. It's still so finely manicured. They're really not getting it out into the kind of grass that I'm hitting it into, but that's one thing that I always notice.
Well, that's what's so unique about Links Golf. Like, I was watching this video about how first of all, Jordan Spieth is my pick this week, because
that's a nice pick.
Links Golf suits Jordan Spieth. You don't have to hit driver a lot. If you're gonna miss, it doesn't have to be that big of a miss. He's not great with his driver, but he's a really strong iron, wedge, and putter player. And if you can nail your irons properly on Links Golf and get them up onto the greens like that, it's no problem. I think Jordan Spieth is going to play really well. He's at plus 2,000 odds to win. I feel really good about that. I feel really good about Spieth being in contention. He's never missed a cut at the Open. He's always been within the top 20. Jordan Spieth, baby, let's go. I'm all in.
You know what? I was ready to pick Rory like I did last time out, and I was going through all of it until, and I know he's had the first round bugaboos, but his driver, like you just talked about, he just can't, the driver has failed him. Mm-hmm. He just can't keep it in the fairway. So as much as I was ready to do that, until I started looking at those driving statistics, it just got me away. I would go to, I thought about the Aussie Adam Scott, but I've settled on two guys, and they're both English blokes. And a couple of years ago, when I was up in Ireland, Shane Lowry won it. I'm looking to either Justin Rose, who's won the Open before, or Tommy Fleetwood.
U.S. Open, Justin Rose.
I think, is it just Scott has won the British Open? I thought Justin Rose won. Because he's English. He didn't win.
Justin Rose has.
I'm going to bet you on that one. I'll bet that he has.
I'm looking it up right now.
Look it up. But as I thought about, it's the sentimental pick, and I know it doesn't have anything to do with soccer and everything else, but England needs it. England needs Tommy Fleetwood to win it. Tommy Fleetwood with the long hair is going to be my pick.
Tommy Fleetwood's a really interesting player because he's really good and he's in contention a lot, but he's yet to win in the U.S. soil, and he has not won a major yet. That dude is due. And on top of that, Justin Rose just won the U.S. Open in 2013. He has finished tied for second in 2018 at the Open Championship. That's his best finish. And my burner account, Jonathan Lord, is also saying that Spieth is taking home the claret jug, so I feel good about that one. And the other player I'm really going to look at, Jon Rahm, betting favorite. Jon Rahm's playing some of the best golf of his life right now. Dude's incredibly fun to watch. He's super powerful. It's going to be interesting. One of his biggest strengths is hitting the driver, and you're not really going to need it this week, so who knows what's going to happen with him. But I'm looking at Spieth and Rahm. I feel really good about those two guys.
It's an excellent catch by you, because I actually did look this up earlier about Justin Rose, and it said, you get to Google and it said, has Justin Rose ever won the British Open? Like, they asked the common questions, and I hit it, and it said he won his first major championship, and it does say U.S. Open. I think that I just saw the Open. That's why they should use British.
No,
that's why they should put British Open, because you know what?
So wrong.
I just saw the Open there, and my reading comprehension failed me, because here it is, not just going off the top of my head. I looked it up, and I'm like, you know what? Rose has won it before. I like the pick. I was doing him and put it in my you got to pick 6 golfers, and but Tommy Fleetwood has never won it, so Fleetwood's my pick.
Fleetwood's due for a major. I don't think he'll win this week, but I think he'll win a major on U.S. soil, whether it's the Masters, PGA, or the U.S. Open. I think he will, but he's due. He's not going to win it this week because Spieth is winning it, so it's not going to matter. But I know golf major champions. Like, if you tell me a name, I'm going to know they won a major championship.
It was impressive. So. You're up 1 on me. I said I bet you. We didn't put any terms down on that bet, so. No. You're up 1 on the let's make a bet with nothing, behind it except our reputation. Reputation bet's a pretty good one, though. Your reputation precedes you, and you're up 1 on me.
I'll still have to shave my head if the Lions don't win 6 games this year. So I haven't forgotten that one.
You know what? If they win under 3, I'll shave my head. I don't know. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's a good one. All right. Anything else out there?
I took just no. Are we gonna do the major wager real quick?
Oh yeah, let's do it. Major wager. Let's go.
I have the AL plus 104. I'm taking them with the money line, and the Suns tomorrow money line at plus 154.
Like I said earlier, think that the Bucks are going to win, but the 4.5, I would have to put the Bucks on the money line, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take the Suns plus 4.5, and we will see how that turns out, because that will be one of our chapters coming up on Thursday. Thanks everybody for watching, listening. For Brian Jelinek and Brian Chapman, who's off on vacation, I'm Dennis Fithian. This has been the 5th chapter, and good night. And see ya.